No music. 3, 2, 1, go. Here we are. Good morning. Get out of bed. Check the fridge. We got soup and meatballs on tap. I am Max. This guy over here is, where is he? He's over there. That's
Yeah.
Tim. Coming at you. What's going on, man?
Not much. In fact, I actually am making soup after this, so very, very appropriate.
Last night I'm in broadcast mode. Last night I got to do the play-by-play for Mid-Penn Broadcasting's broadcast of the Chambersburg football game. And the place I usually go to for meatballs, they would have closed by the time I was done. So no meatballs this morning. Tonight, though. Tonight we'll go out to dinner and I'll meatball it up. It'll be a good time.
That's the first time I've heard the word meatball used as a verb.
It's not as powerful a word as, others, but we can make that happen.
No, I like it. Meatball it up.
Yeah. And I don't know if you noticed down in our bottom Chiron area, using media lingo, we have an Instagram page now.
Oh,
we're all over.
We've got a social media presence.
We can't go live on Instagram, I don't think, but I don't think that matters. We're live on YouTube right now. Let me get that squared away so I can check the chat. Look at that. We are going.
We're a real professional enterprise here.
We got some stuff going. Big day. It's going to be a heavy day, I think. So let's get into this.
Dive in.
Thursday afternoon, the Dodgers and Marlins played what would appear to be a half meaningless regular season game because, the Marlins are just playing out the string. They're looking at the 2 or 3 pick in next June's draft, thanks to the White Sox epic, awful season. Ugh. But the Dodgers are running neck and neck with the Phillies, best record in baseball. And the Marlins did win game 1 of this series. So, maybe something weird could happen in the rubber game on Thursday. And wow, did it. Shohei Ohtani batting leadoff, 6 for 6, 3 home runs, and he drives home 10 of the Dodgers' 20 total runs. But along with that, he brought his cleats and he stole 2 bases, becoming the first major leaguer to eclipse 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in the same season. Founding father of the 50-50 club. Tim, what can you say about that?
I don't know how well you remember when Canseco became the first Jose, not Ozzie Canseco, became the first 40-40 guy in 1988, and everyone lost their minds.
Massive.
He did that, and everyone was like,
stolen bases hadn't been done before.
Yeah, and you think of all the great players who combined speed and power, like Willie Mays and Bobby Bonds, and so when Canseco did that, and everyone was like, "Well, shut down the MVP." He no doubt about it.
He did win the MVP that year, right?
He did win, yeah. He and then Kirk Gibson was the National League MVP with 25 home runs, by the way, and 88 RBIs. I remember that. He didn't even have 100 RBIs. So for Ohtani to go 50-50, what do you?
I got a text from my mother-in-law right now.
Oh.
She's checking on my daughter has an earache.
So I was like, are you cheating on me with another podcast?
I'm live with Tim. So no, I don't want to. You don't leave your mother-in-law on red. So
true. But yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
And I know the rule changes. The bigger bases and the limited pickoffs. I don't care. It's still super impressive. And I think the most impressive thing is that he might be one of the 5 best pitchers in baseball. He suffered the devastating, ulnar injury.
Yeah.
So he's
you said earlier this week, I think we were talking the other day, and you said there was talk he might pitch in the postseason. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I heard there's a chance that he could pitch in October. Which
is that a good idea, do you think?
I don't. You don't mess around post Tommy John surgery. I think they'd be better served just letting him be the best hitter in the National League, maybe all of baseball.
I mean, let's just imagine a random pitcher. So Justin Verlander was hurt at the beginning of the year, right? And when he comes back, you need a couple spot starts in the minors just to get your arm loose. It's September 21st. There is no minors. And I mean, the postseason is, I don't know, like 20 minutes away. I don't see how would that be a good idea at all?
No, I think they should stick with the plan to just shut him down. But it's
And like you
wild
said, be the best hitter in the National League.
he's like a Cy Young caliber pitcher who, just for funsies, went out and dropped a 50-50 on everyone. That's I can't even think of a player to compare him to in my lifetime, or even in
not in
like
our lifetime,
Babe Ruth.
obviously. And when Ruth did it, he wasn't doing it at the same time. So the people who look at Babe Ruth and they see the picture of the big, hefty, burly guy who existed on beer and hot dogs, he certainly wasn't always that player. My father would tell you he'd go out and steal a bunch of bases himself, not 50 of them, but he was a tremendous pitcher on his way to potentially being a Hall of Fame pitcher with Boston. And then in 1920, he just switched over to being a hitter with, I don't know if he occasionally was like a spot pitcher, but it was never at the same time. He had both skills and both talents, but what you're seeing out of Ohtani now, and I agree, larger bases notwithstanding, you kind of have to look at that in the same viewpoint as people would look at Barry Bonds and his alleged potential whatever abuse. When you look at what PEDs did back in the 90s, I always looked at PEDs as like they give you extra recuperation time and not help you hit a small ball with a round bat any better. Right. If you looked at Barry Bonds' home runs, they were going 500 feet. If you take away the PED, alleged and all that stuff, what do they drop to 420, 450? They're still going over the fence. So I don't know how close these 50 stolen bases were. I saw 50 and 51 against Miami. They weren't close. He was in there by a mile. So the 5% or 10% bigger base, not a factor there. The pickoffs, I mean, that's slightly an advantage to the runner, I think, but I don't think this is enough to put any asterisk on this.
I don't either
at all.
And I think one of the most impressive things, and people don't talk about, is just how big he is and how well he moves at size. Because he's like what, 6'4", 210, something like that. He's a big guy.
There's a good way to find that out. I will. What did you say he was?
I know he's 6'4", and I want to say he's maybe 210.
He's listed as 210, right on the dot, Mr. Smarty Pants. There it is, 95 kilograms for our friends for our
European listeners.
How about that? For his size, he moves.
Now here's an early Mr. Smarty Pants for you. So there are 6 40-40 guys in Major League history. Do you know who the other 5 are?
You want me to name the other 5? We'll go with number 1, Jose Canseco, 1988. He went 42 and 40. 1996, Barry Bonds.
Yep.
A-Rod with the Mariners.
A-Rod did it. Yep.
One that I think the easy one to forget about, the former Yankee spent most of his career with the Cubs, Alfonso Soriano.
Yeah, he did it in Washington.
And a guy who, I mean, amazingly was not 40-40, was not 40-50, was not 40-60. Ronald Acuna Jr. was 40-70.
Yeah, just last year.
Now, I full disclosure, I am not that smart at all. You just hacked into Mr. Smarty Pants this week.
Oh, great minds.
I had the list. I do have other trivia for you as well, which is cool. But I thought it'd be interesting. I figured you would know them without looking them up. When I went through, I knew Canseco, I knew Soriano, and I knew Acuna. I probably could have guessed A-Rod and Barry Bonds, but I probably would have had to, like Indiana Jones says, walk it through mine a little bit.
I don't know that I would have. I knew Soriano did it because he's always the one that people forget. But I don't know that I would have made
Soriano.
I don't know that I would have known off the top of my head that A-Rod did it because people don't really think of him as a speedster.
He wasn't a base stealer, yeah. It was in his Mariners days, 98. He hadn't really bulked up like Bonds did, and Bonds doing it in 96. He had the same stat line as Canseco, 42 homers and 40 home runs. So yeah, a really, really small class of people, but Shohei in a class of his own. And the other cool thing about Ohtani now that he's with the juggernaut that is the Los Angeles Dodgers, we're going to get a chance to see Ohtani in the postseason as the Dodgers are going to the postseason. They're going to October, and seeding hasn't been set yet. I mean, LA and Philadelphia neck and neck, but it's one thing that when he was with Anaheim, you kind of wondered if he was ever going to make the playoffs, and Ohtani and Trout together not being in the playoffs was kind of a bummer for them. But now we're going to get a chance to see Ohtani in games that actually matter, and we'll see how he amps up his game.
And it really shows how baseball, more than any other sport, really is a team sport. That the Angels could have Trout and Ohtani and never win anything.
Perpetually at the bottom of the standings too. It's not like they missed the playoffs by a game or two. It wasn't close.
Mike Trout's career is not just with the injuries, but it's going to be one of the great what ifs. Last week you talked about Don Mattingly. He's a better version of this generation's Don Mattingly.
I think that's a good comp right there. And where Mattingly didn't have the same opportunities to make the playoffs because the wild card didn't exist. And looking at the wild card standings, this is today, up to date, September 21st. You're seeing it first here on Soup and Meatballs. In the American League right now, Baltimore, Kansas City, Minnesota at the top of the wild card, and you see Detroit, Seattle, and Boston there. And we're closing in on the end of the regular season. You probably got to think Boston is out of it. Seattle has a shot, but it's an outside shot. Detroit, a game out. Who would have thought Detroit a game out of the wild card at this point after the start they had?
Yeah. What's really exciting, it almost reminds me, I remember in 1994, I think it was, that Sports Illustrated's baseball preview was talking about, Ken Griffey Jr., Frank Thomas, Mike Piazza, all the young talent that were not only like these great players, but could go to the postseason and have this great, playoff showcase. And it kind of feels like that now with the young talent in Baltimore and Bobby Witt in Kansas City. I think that's what I'm most excited about, is seeing these young guys get that chance in the postseason. I'm really excited to see how they respond.
I'm really surprised. Houston, you don't see Houston on this list because Houston is leading the American League West. They had a terrible start to this season. I remember the Yankees opened up with a 4-game sweep in Houston, and Houston they were at the bottom, and they had just a massive summer to pull up and take over the American League West. I mean, they have a 5-game lead there. That's locked in. They're winning that division. But as far as the American League goes, I think it's between New York and Cleveland really for the 1 spot. I don't know if I want the 1 spot. As weird as that sounds, both ones last year lost in their first round matchup. That extended time off, I don't know if that's a good thing. As we switch over to the National League, you see what's going on out there. A little bit tighter race. What do you think? Is it good to get the bye?
I don't think so. And I think we've seen that in the last 2 Octobers with the Phillies, the way that they had to fight and scrap. And, one year they ended up going to the World Series, and then last year, losing in the LCS. But I always go back. I've mentioned it before, the 07 Red Sox, who had to fight back. They were down 3-1 to Cleveland, and Colorado just went through the National League like a knife through warm butter. And they had like a 13-day layoff And Boston just got on a roll, beat Cleveland, and then went in and swept Colorado. I think that's the classic example for just keep playing, keep your routine. You've got your
You're
rotation.
used to it. Like if you get a day or two where you set your rotation the way you want, yeah, but anything more than 2 days is detrimental. I'm with you there.
Yeah,
Looking at these standings, the surprising thing for me is seeing the Mets. Another team didn't start out that hot, and there they are, playoff bound potentially. The Braves on the outside looking in. Injuries.
It's a fun mix of teams, and you mentioned Houston, and people won't like hearing this, but I think the playoffs are more fun with the Houston Astros just because they are such a national villain.
You need and
It's a compelling
the
story.
Yankees are a national villain too, but I mean I think the Yankees would be a bigger national villain next year if they give Soto $700 million.
It's tough for me to even call the Yankees a villain just because Aaron Judge is such a likable guy and he's the face of the franchise. I think you'd be hard pressed, and I say that as a Red Sox fan.
What made Jeter so dislikable then for people? Is it just the defensive analytics that people claimed he was the most overrated player ever because he played in New York?
I think some of it was that. I think, and this is going to sound weird, but I think because he was a good-looking guy who was dating all these like beautiful actresses, I think there was a jealousy
I was
factor.
going to say we could have a draft of Jeter girlfriends.
Like, who's going to root for the good-looking guy who's dating Minka Kelly in 2000? Like anyone outside of New York's going to be like, no, I hate this guy. He wants to beat my team and steal my girl.
And he will. He's the Ric Flair of Major League Baseball.
He really is.
But
great
what
comparison.
really bugs me,
or a Rick Rude. He might be a ravishing Rick Rude, actually. He did
what
all
I'd like to have right now
is
for all you fat, out of shape Boston blowhards, keep the noise down while I take the donut off this bat
and show you what a real man looks like.
No, like what bugs me about the people who get into these defensive analytics about Jeter. I mean, you can't name 6 players who've ever walked on this planet who have more hits in Major League Baseball than he does. I don't know how you call that overrated. When defensive metrics aside, this guy was everything you wanted in a baseball player, and
like people who say
it's easy to call them the villain, but
people who say that he wouldn't be the Derek Jeter we know if he didn't play in New York. It's like, you win 5 titles and rack up 3,500 career hits. You're going to Hall of Fame if you play, in Kansas City. Greatness is greatness.
Yeah, I mean that. Enough said there. And next week or closer to the postseason, we'll have a better snapshot of what our playoffs look like, and we'll see what Mr. Smarty Pants says about who his predictions will be. But I got to tell you, when we put together our rundown, I saw this story on Tuesday, and it absolutely just blew my mind that this was going to be news. This is believed to be the first arrangement of its kind. Tennessee Volunteer fans are now, I guess anybody else going to Tennessee to watch a game, they're going to be charged a 10% talent fee on their tickets in an attempt for Tennessee to help pay their athletes as part of this revenue sharing set to begin in 2025. Danny White, their athletic director, announced it on Tuesday. He told the fans that they wanted to be transparent, and they wanted to do this along with other strategies, which they hadn't mentioned, part of their plan to continue their dominance in college athletics, building something that had never been seen before. That's a quote from him. Tim, is this a good idea, or is this a rabbit hole that may not have an end?
It's an inevitable idea. Once we started getting into NIL money and basically, erasing the distinction between college sports and pro sports, the money was going to come from someone,
I come from somewhere, right?
The same way that fans pay more, to see a Dodgers game because they're giving all their money to Ohtani. This is no different. Well,
not yet. 2034 is going to be a big boom when he gets his $68 million, but understood.
He's the Japanese Bobby Bonilla. But yeah, I mean, this is no different. fans have always subsidized, the money that their teams pay. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's just kind of, the college sports landscape in 2024.
It's so the accounting teacher in me dug deep into the balance sheet and the income statement. In the most recent financial data available, Tennessee football, they turned a $75 million profit in 2023. That's coming from, now you took accounting too in high school, so get these numbers. 134,900,000 revenue. That's money coming in.
Yeah.
59,100,000 money going out. So based on the money coming in, there's no added expense to this talent fee, right? You're looking at a potential 13.5 million extra in revenue. And if you think about it, does 13.5 million really buy all that much in terms of college talent now, when I think Bryce Young was the first NIL player to get $1 million, but I don't think that was from Alabama. I think that might have been a separate business. But does 13.5 million get you a lot in 2025? I don't know.
Well, and you bring that up, and I wonder the effect this will have on smaller schools. Like the small Division I programs that maybe only have like one powerhouse sport. I think they're the ones who are going to see the benefit more. They
focus right on that sport. Like, you don't think Duke is putting money towards, the next great college quarterback.
Right. Or like Kansas men's basketball or something like that. I think that's where you're going to see the benefit, where schools who only have one sort of like powerhouse program are going to, make better use of that money.
I almost said Kentucky, but we saw what Kentucky did to Georgia. So, I think this made for a good headline. I think it made for good talking points. But like when you dig down, like you said, it's almost an inevitability. And this is coming from someone who has yet to experience a Division I college football or college basketball game live. I've just never gone to a game. I've never made it. We talked about this before. Someday I'd like to get to Ann Arbor and, cozy up to the 101,000 other people in the stands with me. And I understand that, there's probably going to be a fee or, an added bonus on the ticket that's, just for me to help pay the next great defensive back.
Yeah, the headline seems like big news now, but I feel like this is something that we'll all have forgotten in a month.
Well, we will see. We'll see in a year or so when this goes into effect. We'll switch to something I'd like to forget. I'd like to forget the Texas game. I don't know about you, but as Michigan guys, this week's a different kind of animal because this is a Big Ten game as USC comes to town in what looks like a Rose Bowl matchup.
Yeah, I feel like Keith Jackson should be calling it.
Yeah, and it should be out west, but no, it's in Ann Arbor. And if you look at the matchup here, you have to think USC has a definitive advantage in the passing game, but I think Michigan is seemingly stronger in the running game. If you look at the analytics from the worldwide leader, they only have USC as a 57.5% favorite in this one, and Vegas has USC minus 4.5. The big news, though, I don't know if Sharon Moore made a mistake in announcing this and giving USC the news up front, but change behind center. Alex Orji is QB1, and Davis Warren, who had won the job in the spring or the summer or whenever, is now QB2. But honestly, I don't think either one of them have looked all that impressive in their playing time. But we're going to see Orji now more. What do you think?
I like the change at quarterback because they had to do something. The offense is what's the word I want? Not good.
Not anemic.
Yeah. Yes. Anemic. I don't unfortunately have a very high opinion of Michigan from what I've seen so far. I don't have a very high opinion of their chances against USC.
You're taking USC minus the 4.5.
Oh, absolutely. USC's kind of been an underwhelming program for being, kind of a powerhouse program. Caleb Williams for all that he did there and winning a Heisman. What they go last? Did they lose 4 games last year? I mean, they
I
weren't.
check with
They
my producer on that one.
they've been very
He's looking
underwhelming. But I
Agreed.
think I don't think they come in and hang one on Michigan like Texas did, but I could see a scenario where they win by like 2 touchdowns.
I think the big thing with this game for Michigan is defensively they have to do better. When you look at USC's year this year, they're doing better than last year. Last year they lost 5 of their last 6, but this year they're playing a lot better. They had a big win against LSU to start the year, and they played Utah State, and they beat Utah State the way you were supposed to. Michigan did not beat Arkansas State the way they were supposed to. They didn't look strong. They didn't look dominant, especially in the second half with the turnovers. You said that they could have run the ball at will, and maybe they were looking to get Warren some film or some practice reps. But yeah, behind center, Michigan has a problem at quarterback. They really do.
And I've been a little disappointed. I thought they were going to be more aggressive defensively. When they brought in Wink Martindale, who's known for blitzing like 60%.
The blitz percentage has gone up. They're blitzing 47% of the time.
But
that's a lot.
They're not getting home. It doesn't seem like they're making opposing quarterbacks too uncomfortable.
And that's really a big problem if you're not getting home. The secondary is at a real disadvantage then. So, like I said, USC definitive advantage in the passing game. If you just look at the numbers, Moss having a pretty good year, and Michigan having issues at quarterback. The other thing that I'm not sure of, and Moore has not come out and said anything definitive, is the Wolverines' big tight end Colson Loveland, who got hurt against Arkansas State. Sharon Moore talked on Inside Michigan Football, had an encouraging update. He said it was less serious than they thought, but that doesn't mean anything. They could have thought it was a season or career-ending injury, and it's only going to be a 5-game injury. So no word on whether Loveland plays or not. He's a big factor in this one if he does, and he's healthy.
Is he the leading receiver?
They really miss Roman Wilson. They haven't had a wide receiver step up. Yeah, so Loveland leads the team with I think they had him at only 187 yards.
Yeah, so if you want to know about how anemic this offense is, when the tight end's your leading receiver with under 200 yards in 3-4 games,
one touchdown, and in 3 games, 2 of them against Arkansas State, and who did they open against? Which should have been a Fresno.
Fresno, yeah.
And Fresno's good offensively, but you're right. Like that, they scored 30 points. They should have more to show for it through the passing game. Kind of a show me game for both teams. I probably agree with you. I would take USC. I said Texas was going to win by 6, so I'm going to say USC is going to win by 40. So maybe we'll do the whole reverse thing.
And, what do I know? I thought Nebraska was going to beat Illinois last night, and I couldn't have been more wrong.
Couldn't have been more wrong there. We go from Division I to our alma maters. And, last week we were able to talk about the results of our games. Now it's just preview time. In the PSAC, IUP and Bloomsburg are both on the road in cross-divisional games, but not against each other, obviously. IUP heading to Millersville. And Millersville has struggled offensively. I think Millersville only has 13 points in their first 2 games this year. IUP leads the series overall 15-5 on a 7-game winning streak against Millersville. Millersville overall has a 9-game losing streak where they average only 15 points. So hopefully a big day for IUP's defense. Bloomsburg's going to Edinburgh.
The Scots.
Facing the Fighting Scots. Scott's had a tough loss as well to Kutztown. Edinburgh only had about 150 yards. So if you look at the standings, there we are. Edinburgh at 1-2, Millersville at 0-2. Hopefully a good week for our guys.
Do you ever get back to IUP? Do you ever catch any games?
So not live, but thanks to the wonders of the interwebs, I'm able to catch a couple streams. I watched the game last week where, they tried to give it away, but their defense held, and it was good to watch. But it's been a while. I'm going to say it's at least 10 years since I've walked IUP's campus. I should get out there more, but very busy.
I only think of it because I registered. I think yesterday. I got my homecoming tickets for BU homecoming. So
okay. I think it's Millersville's homecoming this week. So, and I was just talking about this on the broadcast because Chambersburg inducted their Hall of Fame. They have homecoming next week. Homecoming is a weird game to be the road team for because there's usually an extended halftime, and you're out of your routine. So it'll be interesting to see if that affects IUP in any way, and if there's more fans at Millersville, that could be a factor. So you have Bloomsburg homecoming next week?
No, it's October 12th.
Okay, I think IUP might be next week because I'm getting alumni emails about it.
Yeah, I want to say they have Kutztown on the 12th for homecoming.
But Kutztown's a tough matchup for homecoming, but
that whoever made that schedule did a bad job. You want a gimme for homecoming.
That's like, it was a couple of years ago. I saw Penn State's schedule. Michigan was at Penn State, but Penn State made Iowa the whiteout game. And I remember asking our buddy Matt, I'm like, dude, what's the problem? Like, how is Michigan not your whiteout game?
Right.
Who's Iowa? But
the only
somebody.
The only Penn State game I've been to was a whiteout game in prime time against Iowa.
And Penn State is a different school. They're a different team under whiteout conditions. They just are. They're 1,000 times better. Yeah. And you can't prep for the noise at Beaver Stadium. I'll give them this. I'm not a Penn State fan at all, but game recognized game here. They're loud and it's hard to play in.
Also, James Franklin, a fellow PSAC alum, he played for Denny Dowds at East Stroudsburg.
I love James Franklin. I hope he never retires.
I've had a few conversations with him in my reporter days. He strikes me as like a genuinely good dude.
I agree. You just ask him, my Penn State fan friends, about his game day coaching. I hope he never retires.
Yeah, I mean, other than that big win against Ohio State in 2016, does he have a signature win?
No. But you know what? They said the same thing about Harbaugh for the longest time. He was That's 0 for whatever against his rivals. If you throw enough spaghetti against the wall, eventually it's going to stick. So, yeah. But with the Big Ten now, is a lot different. It's just gotten tougher with the 4 West Coast schools that have come in. So now there's more opportunities. There's more big games, and there might be more scrutiny on them. And but they have the talent in Happy Valley. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Whatever else you want to say about him as an in-game coach, he is a fantastic recruiter.
He is absolutely, and hands down.
Yeah,
he brought home Julian Fleming at Penn State, I believe, the former guy from Ohio. I haven't seen any Penn State games, so I don't know if he's making an impact or if he's even playing. But he was a really big name from Southern Columbia.
Right. He's Julian's like the number 3 receiver. I think he only has 1 catch. He had like a red zone reception. It might have been last week. Honestly, the best thing that he's shown both at Ohio State and at Penn State is he's a tremendous blocker for a wide receiver. That's not going to get him to the league, but for what they ask him to do, he's great downfield at getting in people's way.
So somebody like Fleming, I think, if he wants to make a career out of football, probably going to be on special teams.
Right. And, when he was coming out of Southern, because he I got to see him play pretty regularly, and he was just so fantastic. If you would have told me that
He was a nice kid too.
he's a fantastic kid.
That's good.
And it's funny because his high school teammate was Cal Halliday, who's at Michigan State. Cal's probably going to go to. He's going to get drafted. He's been fantastic in Michigan State.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
I have nothing to add to that. I know Southern Columbia. I think they had a guy. It was a Gage Garcia.
Yeah, they have a couple
the name right?
Yeah,
He went to Michigan.
Right.
So they sent a guy to Ohio and a guy to Michigan and a guy to Michigan State. That's wild.
Yeah, because oh my God, there are so many Garcia brothers.
I don't think Gage stuck with me. I think Gage transferred to a smaller school.
I think he went to
Lehigh. And
then his brother Garrett is at BU. He's on the roster at BU right now.
We have recruiting talk come December when that time hits, but there it is. We'll see what IUP and Bloomsburg do this week. Dude, 36 minutes of pure sports. So let's get goofy now.
Let's get to the nonsense.
This is what people really want to know. So
when are they going to get to the fireworks factory?
Last week, when we had our top five, we were ranking our top five sitcom characters, and Tim pulled out Homer Simpson. And Homer didn't make my list, but I'm not going to argue with Homer's spot in the history of TV. But it got us thinking, we could draft Simpsons characters because there's been so many of them. Simpsons have been on since 1987. So this week, our Soup and Meatball draft, we're going to draft Simpsons characters, but we made a rule. You cannot draft anyone from the Simpson household. So no Homer, no Marge, no Bart, no Lisa, no Maggie, theoretically no Santa's little helper. So
now
all of those.
Is Grandpa Simpson included? He's not on my list, but no Grandpa Simpson?
No, Grandpa didn't live in the house. He lived at
right. He's at the retirement home.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me see. Not for nothing, he didn't make my list either. But, yeah, I mean, if you said you had 5, I have 10. So if I take one of yours, you can take Grandpa.
Okay.
So here we are. We got all of this. I'm going to go. I have this card right here. I don't even know what it is.
Okay.
It's off to the side. You going red or black?
I went black last week, so I'm going to go red.
Slide it right over. Look at that. There it is. 10 diamonds. You are good at this.
I was waiting for it to be like the card with like the instructions.
I don't know do I have that? No, I don't. No. So I mean, let's why not? Well, shout out to Rampart Casino at the resort at wherever that is. I think these cards were like the dollar store casino cards that you get.
Yeah.
And they make a good randomizer for what it is that we do. So Tim gets the first pick, and
you said you thought
I think I know who it is, but we'll see if I'm wrong.
I'm a big fan of like old antiquated like words and phrases. And there was a particular Simpsons writer, John Swartzwelder, who always wrote this character perfectly because he loved just using like old language. It's Mr. Burns. Give me Mr. Burns.
Oh, you're going Mr. Burns.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fucking Burns didn't make my top 10 at all.
Charles Montgomery Burns, please and thank you.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good Burns memories for me. I think we'll draw it back to sports here because sports show and all. But when he told Don Mattingly to cut his sideburns, Mattingly had a mullet, he basically shaved the sides of his hair, and Burns kicked him off the team.
Do you remember who all was on the power plant baseball team? Softball team?
So Mattingly, Darryl Strawberry, was Jose Canseco on that team?
Canseco was.
I think Ken Griffey Jr. got the big head.
Yeah, he suffered from gigantism from drinking Mr. Burns' tonic.
Was Wade Boggs?
Boggs was at third, and he got knocked out by Barney in a bar fight at Moe's.
Uh, uh, Not Howard Johnson.
No.
No, he didn't play. Was Keith Hernandez? Was he at first? No,
Mattingly
because
was
Mattingly would
first.
have been. Mattingly would have been first. Mark McGuire, because they wanted to see dingers
No,
at the end.
no.
Was that a different episode?
That was a different episode.
Oh yeah, McGuire was with the Cardinals then.
So
I
can
remember
tell you,
McGuire saying, don't worry about the something, just watch me hit dingers.
right? I can tell
boy.
you, the catcher was Mike Scioscia.
That's right. Okay, yeah, I wouldn't
And he
have gotten
suffers
that.
from radiation poisoning because he takes his job at the power plant like super seriously.
He takes it seriously.
Mattingly's at first, and he gets benched for the sideburns.
Sandberg,
Steve Sachs.
And
he gets arrested by the Springfield Police Department because, like, Chief Wiggins, like, I heard there were a couple unsolved murders in New York.
And it was like, you don't know when to talk, do you, Saxy boy?
Yeah, you don't know when to shut your mouth, do you, Saxy boy?
That's right.
Ozzie Smith was at short, and he fell into the mystery spot. Like, he becomes like a tourist in Springfield. He's always like taking pictures. Boggs gets into a debate with Barney at the bar, and he gets knocked out. Strawberry was the only one who.
What were they fighting about? What were they fighting about?
They were debating the greatest prime ministers in England's history.
Because that's ridiculous. That's awesome.
Strawberry's in right, Griffey's in center, and then Canseco's in left.
Canseco's in left. There you go.
Oh, and cool. Clemens was the pitcher, and he got hypnotized.
That's so awesome. That would have been a good Mr. Smarty Pants list, and you rocked it out. That's awesome.
Yep.
So, Mr. Burns, that's number one. So for my number one, I mean, I have to go back to my old career when I sat next to Doug Farley on the news desk, and I was doing sports and he was doing news. I'm gonna pay honor to our new alien overlords with my number one, Kent Brockman.
Yeah, that's a good one. I always go back to the one where there's the cat burglar in Springfield, and so when everyone's like trying to find like the money, and they cut to Kent Brockman on the air, and he says to his expert, "Would you say it's time for our viewers to start hitting each other in the head and feasting on the goo inside?" Yes, I would, Kent. Brockman's a good one.
I love Brockman because he's behind the desk, but he also goes in the helicopter. He's out in the field, and you never see anybody. Trisha, no, that's a different show, I think. No, you never see any other reporters. It's just him. He does all the work.
There's the one guy. It's Artie Pie in the Sky. Does like traffic updates.
There you go. Cool deal. So Kent Brockman's my number one.
That's a good one. Let me consult my trusty list here. Oh. So I know Bart was the breakout character, but this, for my money, is a character who is paired with Bart a lot, but is even funnier. Give me Milhouse Van Houten.
You're going Milhouse. That's amazing. You might not need extra.
Yeah, Milhouse had what 15-year-old me thought might have been the funniest line I'd ever heard on television. When it's the episode where the Springfield kids are like fighting the Shelbyville kids over the lemon tree. And so, like, Milhouse's Shelbyville counterpart comes to, like, beat him up. And Milhouse goes, "Oh, no, is this the untimely end of Milhouse?" And the bully goes, "But Milhouse is my name." And Milhouse goes, "But I thought I was the only one." And the bully says, "A pain I know all too well." And then Milhouse has, like, a single tear rolling down his cheek. He goes, "So this is what it's like when doves cry."
One of my only Milhouse memories is a phrase that, kind of has blended itself into other people's worlds as well. And it's when things are going well, everything's coming up Milhouse. So
yeah, he consistently cracks me up.
That's a cool pick for you then, because
Milhouse,
another one didn't make.
He's back in top form.
He's back in. That's good. I like that. That's a cool number two for you. My number two is who I thought your number one was going to be, and I thought that if I put him at two, if I get the first pick, I'll take Kent Brockman and I'll give him a chance to take him at number one, and it's really because of the voice actor, and honestly, he is just. I don't think there's a scene that he's in that he doesn't crack me up with his ineptitude. I'm going to take the worst TV lawyer of all time, Lionel Hutz.
Lionel Hutz was on my list.
Oh, well, now you can take Grandpa at 5.
Yeah, as I said last week, my love of Phil Hartman. Yeah, Lionel Hutz. There's a lot to be sad about with Phil Hartman, but losing Lionel Hutz from the rotation of Springfield characters is right up there. Because
when he's in court and doesn't know the proceedings of court, and
I like the one where Marge goes on the lam with their new neighbor, and Lionel Hutz babysits the Simpson children, and at a certain point, like Marge is like. She's like looking off into the distance, like her and the neighbor are out on the town. She's like, there's an awful lot of smoke coming from my house. And then it's like a smash cut to the Simpsons house. And like Lisa's like, Mr. Hutz, why are you burning all those papers? And he says, Lionel Hutz no longer exists. Say hello to Miguel Sanchez.
That's tremendous. That's great stuff. Oh my! And you miss him because
yeah,
that is my number 2.
That's a great choice. You definitely cherry picked one off my list. I forget who my number 3 is. Let me consult my trusty list.
Get the sheets.
Oh, so as you know, I'm a big nerd for presidential history, and one of the great things about The Simpsons is that the Quimbys are essentially just like a thinly veiled version of the Kennedys. Give me Diamond Joe Quimby, Mayor Quimby.
Oh. I thought you were going to go with either Bill Clinton or George Bush, who would be eligible. But no, Diamond Joe.
Yeah. If for nothing else, Ich be 9 Springfield Schwappa.
That's amazing right there. Wow.
Thank you. I've been perfecting.
How long have you been working on
that? My entire lifetime has been building to this very moment.
And it's into the crescendo of Quimbyism. That's solid.
Yeah, just the most corrupt, just like a great satire on small town politicians. Just, I feel like growing up, Hazleton had several mayors who were Quimby-esque.
I propose that whatever's left in the town treasury be given to me so I can move to a new town and run for mayor there.
I like when him and Chief Wiggum are like reading through the town charter to like settle some dispute. And Chief Wiggum's like, and it says here that the police chief gets 3 maidens of virtue true. And like, as they're reading through it, and Quimby's like, enough about the other stuff. How many broads do I get?
He was always at the sleazy hotel area with like half the lights turned out.
And for some reason, as he was like just, always philandering, he would have the sash that said mayor. It's like he wanted to like rub it in his constituents' faces.
That's so awesome. I'm no argument there. He didn't make my top 10, so you haven't cut one off of me yet.
Okay.
My number three is a helpful character, always willing to lend a hand, except between the hours of 4 and 5. That's Willie's time. I'm going to take groundskeeper Willie.
You cherry picked another one. I have to cross him off.
He
was my number 4.
He's my number 3, and he's so angry, but then he has that. I don't know if there's an episode where he turns into an opera singer, or maybe I'm just jumbling characters, him and Barney or something. But he's got a soft spot to him. He lives in the shed outside the school, and he turns in one of the Halloween episodes. He turns into an awesome rendition of Freddy Krueger.
Yeah,
and that's cool to me.
He also has he plays a prominent part in what I think is the best of the Treehouse of Horror episodes, where he because they do the Shining parody, there's the time travel parody.
One? Yeah, he's telling and you're really screwing this up.
Yeah, and he just keeps getting killed by an axe to the back.
It was the Shining you're saying. There you go.
Right. Just use that shin of yours.
What? You want to get sued?
Yeah, that's a pretty good groundskeeper, Willie.
I've been working at it for 10 seconds here.
So I'll go.
No, there's this shit. Yeah, the shinning was the 4 and 5. That's Willie's time. That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So since I can't take groundskeeper Willie, I'm going to go someone who was on my list who's sort of Lionel Hutz adjacent. I'm going to go with Troy McClure, who you might know from such educational films as 2 minus 3 equals negative fun.
Troy McClure would have made my honorable mention list. He didn't make the top 10, but he made what I would have called honorable mention. Yeah, he's great too. Just for that kind of line. And you may know me from.
And if The Simpsons gave us nothing else but the Planet of the Apes musical, with the line "I hate every ape I see, from chimpanzee to chimpanzee," Dayenu. we just thank God that exists.
Dr. Zayas, Dr. Zayas. Dr. Zayas, Dr. Zayas.
I just read something on Twitter where one of the Simpsons writers was talking about just like the string of like idiocy that led to them connecting that Rock Me Amadeus by Falco sort of sounded like Dr. Zayas, the character from Planet of the Apes.
And the dance they're doing in the middle of it is it's techno and ridiculous, and
it's as stupid as it sounds.
That's a soup and meatball show in and of itself right there. Yeah, I like Troy McClure. Honestly, I'm surprised he wasn't higher on our list. I think getting McClure at 4 is a steal. So good on you there. My number 4, and it's my number 4 on my list. I mean, you haven't picked one off yet. So and I'm not going against where my head was. Doesn't spend a lot of time on the show. And I think you can count his appearances maybe on one hand, but maybe I'm wrong. But he has one of the best responses to a phrase that I can think of as he's holding his dying comrade's body in his arms, and the man says, "Get Mendoza." Reiner Wolfcastle just Mendoza, and just I think he's probably around more often, but he is the parody of, I guess, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
right?
Super funny guy who just has a real dry wit to him when he tries to be funny.
Yeah, and my favorite line of his is when they're making the Radioactive Man movie, and Milhouse plays Fallout Boy, and they're doing the shot where it's like this wall of acid that's gonna come, but like potentially kill Radioactive Man. And the director's like,
yeah.
Now I want now that's real acid, people. So wear your protective goggles. And then when it goes horribly wrong and he gets washed away by the acid, and you just hear McBain go, "The goggles, they do nothing.
They do nothing." Up and at them.
Up and at them.
He doesn't get a lot of play, but he amuses me.
He's like the paprika of the show. Like, you don't want to use too much or it'll overwhelm the dish. So with my number 5, because I'm gonna have to go off script here. He plays a prominent role in one of my favorite bits on the show. I'm gonna go with Mo, the bartender.
Gotcha.
And the bit that I'm referring to is from the Who Shot Mr. Burns 2-parter, when they have him on the lie detector. And,
yes.
They ask
what
him,
are you doing? I have a big date tonight.
A date. All right. Dinner with friends. Dinner alone. All right. I'm going to stay at home and eat alone, and I'll go to the ladies in the Victoria's Secret calendar. Sears catalog. Ding. And then the kicker when he's like, "Now, will you unhook me from this? I don't deserve this shabby treatment." It goes, He's just like the saddest sack. Like it's truly one of the darkest jokes The Simpsons did, where I forget what the circumstances are, but it's Mo in like a t-shirt and boxer shorts, and he has his head in his oven, and he just has a note pinned to his back that says "No funeral."
Until was it Mars? They turned the bar into a family restaurant or something, and he got a credit card payment, and like he swiped it, and he was so happy about it.
Yeah.
Um,
So
or
if you like
tried to
fried food and a bunch of crazy crap on the walls.
he tried to turn the bar into like this. It was a sparkly thing, and the ice cream, and he was like, "Hi, I'm Mo, something something," and he made the kid cry, and he was like trying to keep the smile, but he's just too Mo to do that.
Or when he trains Homer to be a boxer, and he's talking about his own boxing career, and he's like, "Yeah, I used to fight under the name Kid Gorgeous, then Kid Handsome, then Kid Presentable, then Kid Ugly, then Kid Mo."
I feel bad. Mo he didn't make the honorable mention list, but yeah, he's a great pick. I like that one. My number 5, you haven't touched any of them, so I'm just going to go with where my head was. Character wise, I mean, he really fits into a lot of my interest in high school and in college, and is the purveyor of the quote, "I'm afraid I must insist. You see, my wife, she's been very vocal on the subject of the monies from the pretzels." Fat Tony. I like Fat Tony.
And that's another great voice performance by Joe Mantegna. Not to be confused with Joe Montana. I truly, I thought you were going to go Ralph Wiggum.
So Ralph, as I clear my throat 6 times, Ralph didn't make the honorable mentions because he just didn't. I don't mind Ralph. I mean, Super Nintendo Chalmers is something that will live on in my mind, and I will not choose him. You can kind of see Ralph's heart breaking right there because he didn't make either one of our lists.
I'm surprised, Fat Tony.
Yeah, Fat Tony is a lovable mob character that makes my list. I'll tell you who the other ones, because I went 6 to 10 as well, just in case. Number 6 was probably should have been drafted. I think absolute greatest brand manager of all time, Duffman.
Oh yeah,
I love Duffman.
Oh yeah,
I know this person, and it was the gentleman you were hoping to get on as a guest, but he doesn't wake up in the morning. Our friend Chris Palermo really reminds me of Comic Book Guy.
I could see that.
The Comic Book Guy and Chris has a satirical wit to him, which you will experience live whenever he wakes up in the morning. So, Chris, wake up. Another one that I really thought you were going to pick, I had him down on my list. He doesn't advertise.
Oh, Disco Stew.
Disco Stew. I like Disco Stew. And another guy doesn't get a lot of play, but
I'll tell you who almost made my list is Krusty the Clown.
Krusty? Okay.
I'm a sucker for like just that sort of like low rent show business, like right, just that weary, the show must go on kind of.
Yeah. That's how we feel after doing it. After we do a 2-hour show. Where's the meatballs?
Yeah.
Somebody who I picked somebody who I really thought I could be friends with. I think he would fit in. Like when we were in high school, he would have fit in with our friend group when he would have been younger, obviously. Carl Carlson.
Oh, sure.
I think he's just a nice guy, and he looks out for his buddies, and Carl was cool in my book. And then number 10 only appeared in one episode. I think only appeared in one episode. But when I had to look over, I had a list of Simpsons characters in front of me. So maybe the best cameo, I think, Stonecutter number 1.
Oh, Patrick Stewart.
And the paddling of the swollen ass. Scott. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say that song, I think in the long list of great Simpsons songs, might be the best.
I think that's a song. I'd like the full version. I'd like to put it on my phone. I'd put it on my playlist.
Just for the line, who rubs crayfish of their sight? Who rigs every Oscar night? We do.
It's good. It's good harmony too. Yeah. So there we go.
Yeah, fantastic stuff.
I mean, this I think was one of the more fun drafts that we did. Even if I robbed a couple from you, we we've done a lot of good ones, and this one I think might get a lot more heat online. People think you draft better than me, but I draft weird and wonky. So we'll see this week what people think about our draft. Our top 5 this week. You had came up. There goes the hat because I can't think with that on. You had thought about this. You had thought about this as a draft, and I thought this can't be a draft because I guarantee we're going to both have the same number 1. And I'll give you Ric Flair because I could get Stone Cold. I'll give you. I'll give you Mr. Burns because I was going to take Ken Brockman. But you wanted to talk about the top college fight songs. And before we get into our list, I think we can both say number 1 at the same time.
Oh, yeah, the Victors, obviously.
It's the Victors. There it is. The Victors it's the most iconic song. And not much I can say about it other than, I have it written down. It was penned by Michigan student Louis Elbel, who was inspired by the 12-11 victory over Chicago in 1898 that closed out the Wolverines' first perfect season and first Big Ten title. It was a perfect season. So, yeah, the Victors is an easy number 1. I don't think there's any, drama that we're going to create by going 5-1 there. So
yeah, and I think the best thing I can say about the Michigan fight song as a Michigan fan is that any non-Michigan fan who's being honest with themselves would also include the Victors, just because, much like one of the other songs on my list, it just feels like college football.
Indeed. And you know what? I don't even feel bad. I don't know if we're allowed to, but let's just soak it in.
I learned to play that on the guitar as I was watching the Michigan-Alabama game back in January.
Awesome. So we're gonna do that next week then, right?
I've got the guitar right over there.
If Michigan beats USC, we're leading off with Tim playing the Victors. That's a soup and meatballs promise there. Maybe not as good as my ringtone, but
yeah.
Okay. So, let's go to number 5. We'll go 5 through 2 now. So
okay.
What do you have for number 5?
So I'll tell you what I almost went with was On Wisconsin, just because it's what the kids call a bop. But I'm a sucker for the military schools, okay. And I'm going to go with Off We Go, which is also people know as Wild Blue Yonder for the Air Force.
Oh wow, you went Air Force.
I went Air Force,
okay.
But there's another service academy on my list.
Okay, so you went Air Force. I went with a team. Now this is probably we're going to cross over. I bet this is probably a school that deserves to be higher. But I mean, the thing about college fight songs is they evoke memory, they evoke passion more than Fly Eagles Fly or Bear Down or things like that. At least in my opinion. But this is one of those game recognized game songs, the Notre Dame Victory March. Penned by Reverend Michael Shea and John Shea. The haters are going to hate it. The lovers are going to love it. I don't like Notre Dame because I'm a Michigan guy, but it's definitely in the top 5. It might be 2 or 3 if I have to be honest, but I'm not putting it at 2 because Notre Dame.
So full disclosure, and I'll just talk about it now. Notre Dame was my number 2.
Okay, and that's totally fair. I totally, you can't argue that. It evokes a memory and a rivalry that I'm just not ready to put it to.
It almost makes the movie Rudy worth watching just because the song's that good.
It is, and you can understand based on, Mikey from the Goonies' portrayal of Rudy that he was indeed offsides. And
yeah, and I should say Sean Astin is also very good as Rudy. Yeah, that's just a song. Like I hear that and I just see like the leaves turning and the weather getting colder. Like it just makes me feel like it's fall.
You know what's my strangest Notre Dame memory for me? I think it was 1993. Notre Dame, Florida State, I think played a 1-2 game,
Yeah,
and
game
I
of the
can
century.
whoever the Notre Dame quarterback was, but it was McDougal maybe, I don't.
Kevin
But
McDougal.
he threw a touchdown pass in the back of the end zone, and the camera was almost like the Dwight Clark the catch. It was right there, and you see the tight spiral coming right in, and the
I,
stripes in the end zone, and the song playing. But the next week, Boston College knocked off Notre Dame, and all was right with the world again.
so the pass I believe he threw was to Derek Mays.
Okay.
And then do you remember who the quarterback was for BC who threw for like 400
Oh,
yards the following week?
Boston College, no, but Florida State was Charlie Ward,
Charlie
I
Ward.
think.
So the BC quarterback
Boston
the following week,
College.
he got drafted by the
Oh,
Jets.
yeah. No, I'm totally blanking. You're going to say it, and my head's going to explode. So
Glenn Foley.
Glenn Foley, that's right. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that was. I have very distinct memories of that Florida State Notre Dame game. I remember.
Just that one, the slow mo pass. I see it.
I just
30 years
remember
later.
like Notre Dame really kind of took it to him a little bit, and then Florida State made it close at the end.
They
I
couldn't
remember
come
sitting
back.
there. I was in like we were in ninth grade. I was sitting there eating Nutter Butters on my parents' living room floor, and I just watched like the Notre Dame fans storm the field after the clock hit zeros. You're right; it's a great memory.
Well, not for me, but great song and worthy of being on the list. So.
Absolutely. So that was my two. I'll go. Okay, so this might be a surprising choice. Um, I think both of us could be described as being very much Northerners. We're a couple of born and bred Yankees, but something about the song Rocky Top. I don't care what
Oh,
side of the
okay.
Mason-Dixon you live on. I defy you to not tap your toe when the banjo starts and they start singing about the Smoky Mountains. It feels like something out of the Dukes of Hazzard. It's just it feels like just like pure like southern, like everything that's like good about the South. I feel is like just evoked by Rocky Top.
Looking over my list, it is a decidedly Yankee list. There's one school from the South, but not what you would consider the South. And the reasoning behind it is just, you're going to be like, oh, okay. Yeah, it makes the list. Like if you look up classic fight songs, that's absolutely there.
Like,
and worth the 10% talent fee to go listen to it live. I think.
It makes me wish I knew how to clog. Just hearing that song, like you just want
Time to learn. I mean, by the time bowl season comes, maybe we can do a guitar playing, clog dancing combo.
This is slowly turning into a musical.
Speaking of which, you remember the show? Now, and I'm not gonna be able to think of it. The lawyer who travels to California.
Lawyer who travels.
Oh, man.
Was it a TV show or a musical?
Yeah, it was a show on like the CW for a while. It was only 3 seasons or so.
Oh, Creepy Extra.
Creepy Extra. That's
I love
right.
that show. I love Rachel Bloom. I love that show.
They broke into music halfway in and are like, what are we doing here? Yeah, so we could do that, like Soup and Meatballs musical style. My wife is a musical director. And my mother-in-law, the piano player. We can get something going here.
We, a little bit of trivia about that show. Do you know who her co-songwriter was?
No, I have no idea.
Was Adam Schlesinger, who was the front man for Fountains of Wayne of Stacy's Mom fame.
Schlesinger sounds more like a tight end to me.
Yeah, no, he also wrote That Thing You Do from the movie That Thing You Do.
Excellent.
Very prolific songwriter.
The things you learn whilst watching Soup and Meatballs. You're not getting this anywhere else, folks. I don't know what else to say. We're that good.
Quality content.
Yeah, so for me, my number 4 is definitely on your list, but I cheated because there's a tie. I listened to both of them, and I'm going to say Army and Navy are tied. Navy sounds better. I'm going to say Navy sounds better, but my dad was an Army guy, so it's hard for me to say Navy. I put both service academies together. You can't tell me one is better than the other. Although I will say I like Navy's sound. That's slightly more. Don't tell anybody though.
Yeah, I'm the grandson of two Army guys, but I have some buddies who are a couple of squiddies from the Navy. So absolutely, number 3 is Anchors Away from the Navy.
You're going Navy then.
I am going Navy. Yeah, just an absolute earworm of a song. Just you hear it and you're humming it the rest of the day. And also, I don't know why NFL teams don't have bands or fight songs. If I owned an NFL team, I would 100% have
Bring it back.
Bands.
Well, back in the set, they did. Didn't the Redskins have a band?
The Colts.
I remember seeing
there was the 30 for 30 after the Ursays moved to Indianapolis. About how the Baltimore band kept doing shows on Sundays. I think it's called "And the Band Played On."
I want to say the Chiefs had a band too at a Super Bowl too. Like Super Bowl III, was there a marching band, or maybe that wasn't the Chiefs marching band? Maybe it was like a high school band doing the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl One. The Chiefs were in Super Bowl One. They had a marching band.
Is that the Steve? Oh, the greatest announcer ever, Steve what?
Steve Sable?
I'm thinking Steve Carell, but it's not Steve Carell. The voice of the NFL.
John Facenda?
Hold on. Voice NFL Steve. Oh wow, maybe I'm totally wrong.
So the two voices for NFL films were Harry Callis, and then John Facenda was the more frequent voiceover guy.
Just not the guy I'm thinking of, and I'll get there next week for the people. I'm not gonna sit here and humdrum it away. I will go with, I'll tell you my number 3 and why it's kind of strange. It evokes memories of me playing the NCAA PlayStation game, because
I loved how they would cycle through the fight songs.
It was always the number one. It always played, and it's Blue and Orange for Florida. It probably doesn't deserve to be on the list, but I'm telling you, I was listening to songs. Like I went into YouTube and I searched for a bunch of songs who were like qualified to be on the list. And when I got to Florida, when I got to Blue and Orange, I was like, oh, dude, I was immediately transferred 20 years ago, recruiting people to be on my IUP football team. That I started my team with my wedding party with you at tight end and defensive end. I think you won a Heisman as a defensive player because you had like 100 sacks.
Well, two-way player.
Immediately where my head went. And to me, again, like I said, this music is designed and developed to evoke that kind of passion in the fans. It just evoked nostalgia in me. So it made the list. Probably not should. I put a little note there. Should be Boomer Sooner.
Oh, okay. Now I'm curious. Does IUP have like a song that you associate with like football games?
Again, it's been so long since I've been to a game. I remember my freshman year, where my dorm was, I could see the marching band's practice field, like where they did their thing, and I could hear them. But I can't hear them now. If I heard a song that that they played a lot, I can guarantee you that they didn't play Barbara Ann.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I went there, and you know what I mean, and anybody else who played for the Cougars understands what I mean. No Barbara Ann.
For Bloomsburg, I think of I'm trying to think if they still do it, but when I was in school at the start of the fourth quarter, I don't know if you know like it's like a song from the 60s called Hey Baby. It's like hey, hey baby. But they would always play that, and then like they would start to sing it, and then the crowd would start to sing it. And it just I hear that song and it takes me back to the year like 1999.
That's almost like Jump Around at Wisconsin then.
What's that?
That's almost like Jump Around at Wisconsin or Mr. Brightside at Michigan.
Mr. Brightside at Ann Arbor, yeah.
Crowd singing. That's cool. I like that, and that's awesome that everybody can get involved in it. You get that's why college football is the greatest thing on the planet. I don't care.
College football is just not the same sport as the NFL. It just has more personality.
Which, I mean, Yeah, I mean, you put 100,000 fans in the seats versus 50,000 at a
But just like the
branded stadium. So,
traditions and the fight songs and just like it's just something you don't get in the NFL.
so you went Notre Dame 2 and the
I did.
Victors 1. So your list: Air Force, Rocky Top, Anchors Away, Notre Dame, and Michigan. My number 2, and again, evoking personal memories, personal experiences now because my son is in the marching band. His high school's mascot is the Trojans, and they play "Fight On"
That's a
as
good one.
their song. So when I hear "Fight On" at Southern Cal, which I hope I don't hear a lot today, I see my son playing the trombone and smiling and dancing, and I think "Fight On" at least it deserves to be on the top 5. Probably not number 2. It's definitely not over Navy or over Notre Dame as far as songs go. But again, personal reflection, seeing my son playing it, that's why it's 2 for me.
And that's true of like a lot of these songs. I think we keep talking about like what the songs take us back to. Like they're very evocative. I think everyone has some sort of personal memory of like, maybe watching a game with their dad, or maybe they played, or it takes them back to when they were in college or whatever.
And you know what? That's a list for down the road. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's a good one though. USC. I'll tell you, and I think it's the elephant in the room that we've been avoiding.
No. Don't even say it. No, we don't have to.
Penn State.
Oh, Penn State. Okay, no, I thought you were
That's a
talking about
catchy
the other.
fight song. I like Penn State's fight songs.
So, if you've ever been to a Harrisburg football game, the Harrisburg fight song is awful, and
That's not where I thought
it is because like Chambersburg, they mirrored USC, Hazleton mirrored the Beach Boys, whatever. Yeah, Harrisburg mirrors the school in Ohio. Awful to hear.
Yeah, the one
And
Scarlet.
Yeah, so as if you're not a fan of Michigan, props to that. That's another big song you heard a lot. No, you know what? Penn State made the list of I want to listen to it. I didn't like it. I would have given it. Put Notre Dame on the list. I have no problem putting a rival that's not Ohio State on the list. But yeah, the Penn State song, was it Blue and White or Fight on State or whatever it's called?
I don't know the name.
It didn't bop for me. We'll put it that way.
Because maybe just not being originally from Pennsylvania, like I didn't watch a lot of Penn State football until I moved here. Mm-hmm. So maybe I hear it with different ears than you do. But I remember the first time hearing it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's catchy. I like that."
Rocks for you? Well, that's fair, totally fair. But yeah, so I mean, hey, let us know, where do we go wrong? Aside from what we know that we skipped. What's your favorite song? Let us know. We're at the point now where we kind of have to maybe come up with something on the fly here, because you already answered the list. We talked about the list, but I don't have a new list prepped, so we're just going one question.
Okay.
Unless I can think of a list on the top of my head, which isn't going to happen. And it's going back a little bit to the Shohei Ohtani story as well, because Shohei went 40-40 and then 50-50. However, there have been 47 players who have hit 30-30 in Major League history. 16 have done so more than once. I don't have the 16 listed, otherwise that would be the list. The question for you, though, there was 2 questions. Which player was the first to record a 30-30 season, and which player has the most 30-30 seasons of all time?
Is it Bobby Bonds? Was he the first?
Bobby Bonds was not the first. I'm not sure if this counts as the modern era, if that helps a little bit.
Oh.
Certainly not dead ball, but
right, because I mean, no one was hitting 30 home runs like turn of the 20th century.
I'll tell you, this character hit 332, had 39 home runs and 37 stolen bases. But he was also caught stealing 20 times that year, so he could have gone 40-40. He was close.
What year?
1922.
1920. 30. Is it Ruth?
No.
Who else was hitting 30 home runs in 1922? Mel Ott?
The name didn't ring a bell for me, so I thought it would be a good trivia question for you. It's not Mel Ott, and I know that name.
Yeah, I
do one more guess.
Okay, 1922.
3 strikes, you're out.
How about Rogers Hornsby?
Not Rogers Hornsby. That's another name I knew. He was an outfielder for St. Louis, if that helps.
No.
Yeah. Ken Williams.
Oh, I never would have gotten. You could have given me 1,000 guesses.
Ken Williams hit 332, 39 home runs, 37 stolen bases. Can you imagine? He received 0 MVP votes, even though he drove in 155 runs. Do you know why he got 0 MVP votes?
Did he sleep with a bunch of the sports writers' wives or something?
No, this is great. In 1922, there was no MVP. The MVP came out in 1931.
Oh, that's right.
There it is. So Ken Williams was the first. Who's done it the most?
How about?
I love this one.
How about Barry Bonds?
And because you can make a list out of this, Barry Bonds, 5. One other player has 5.
Willie Mays?
No, not Mays.
Whew. Someone else with 5 30 seasons. I don't know.
Bobby Bonds. You said it earlier.
Damn it.
Amazing. Can you imagine? Bobby and Barry Bonds each have 5 30 seasons. That's crazy. Crazy to think about.
I mean, they're the greatest father-son tandem in baseball for a reason. I think Barry Bonds is so great that it overshadows how great his father was.
Yeah, I totally agreed. So the one thing I like about that kind of when people talk about combos, I saw this quote and it was attributed to basketball, and I'll attribute it to myself as well. I'll do this as well. So I don't know where you were on March 28th of 1990. But Michael Jordan was playing in a game against the Cavaliers, and Michael Jordan and I combined for 69 points against the Cavaliers. So when you talk about the combos, like the Bonds is combined for 10, 30 seasons, that's almost 20. It's almost a quarter of them, almost like 22% of the 30 seasons. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So and you're right. The sheer magnitude of Barry overshadows Bobby, who tremendous player in his own right. Let's get that straight.
And the same happened with the Griffies, where Ken Jr. was so great that people forget Ken Sr. was a really important part of the Big Red Machine.
Yeah. And they went back to back in Seattle, I think, right? Didn't hit back to back home runs, father and son. That's a really neat story.
Yeah, I want to say it was 1990, maybe.
Neat little thing. Sure. Let's just, if you say it with enough conviction, right? It's got to be true. So there it is, Mr. Smarty Pants. I was Mr. Smarty Pants earlier. I don't know how I did that, but rocked out the 40-40 seasons by looking at my notes. But here we go. The new part of our show just debuted last week as part of Tim's birthday surprise. Rank Roulette, and this week, I'm inspired by a TikTok filter that I saw, which you hit the button and the pictures go flying, and you were supposed to rank. It's a blind ranking of what they considered GOAT athletes. So I'm going to give you 5 athletes. I'm going to let you pick the number. I have them listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in as random in order as I made them. So there's nothing with my numbers here. Okay. I'm going to give you the chance to pick a number, and I'll give you the player, and you rank them as far as where you think they fit on your GOAT ranking.
Okay, I'll start with 4.
Number 4 on my list is Muhammad Ali.
For as great as he wasn't even the greatest boxer of all time, just despite the nickname. So I'll put him like 3.
You're going to ollie at 3. Okay. Next up. You got 1, 2, 3, 5 to pick from on the list.
I'll go 1.
The randomizer for you. You're the randomizer.
Right. I'll go 1.
You're going to number 1. Number 1 on my list is Tom Brady.
2.
You're going Tom Brady number 2. Cool. All right. So he was your second choice. All right. You got 2, 3, or 5 to pick from now.
3.
3. Michael Phelps.
Boy. I'll 4.
Michael Phelps at 4. Okay. So now between 2 and 5.
2.
You're going 2. Tiger Woods.
5.
Tiger Woods going number 5. Wow. So the number 5 person on my list is your number 1. And it's an interesting pick. It's Shaun White.
Oh, he would have been 5. I kept waiting for Jordan. I kept waiting for Michael Jordan.
Oh, I got you. And that's kind of what that filter makes you do. It makes you think, who's coming up next. So Shaun White, Tom Brady, Muhammad Ali, Michael Phelps, Tiger Woods. Probably not the way you'd put them in real life, but
no, I probably would have gone Phelps 1, to be honest.
Yeah, that's as far as his sport goes.
Like, here's the thing. Like I said, Ali was great, but not the greatest boxer. Tiger is great, but maybe not even the greatest golfer because Jack Nicklaus has more majors.
These are characters right out of the filter, so that's
yeah.
I didn't invent these. It was the TikTok filter that did.
Yeah. Shaun White's a regrettable number 1.
But
no slight to Shaun White.
It makes for funny content at least. So the one other thing I wanted to at least share with you. So a long time, this is like our kicker story. A long time ago, I don't know if you remember, I came up and I play tested a board game or a dice game that I was making. You remember playing this dice game about baseball?
Vaguely.
Now, you remember where you were sitting during the 1993 Notre Dame Florida State game. You don't remember this dice game. That's how forgettable it was.
And there's
a really cool there's a really cool game that I have an app for called Baseball Highlights 2045. And I want to give a shout out here to a buddy of mine. You see Drummer Boy NC wins the World Series against Boston. That's me, 4-1. I'm in a league with a bunch of guys who play this app. It's a really fun game where you have 6 cards and you're playing a 6-inning game. It's like Little League. But in 2045, the designer says that humans have been largely replaced by cyborgs and robots. The cyborgs are the pitchers. The robots are the best hitters. But there's still some humans who are good defensive players. And they make different names for the players you can buy. Like you won't buy a Shohei Ohtani card, but you might buy. I think they do have a Shohei card, like Shohei Mays or something, or Dice K Darvish, where they blend names. You know who they are and what they do. It's a fun game. So if you were ever into game apps, this is something that I bet you would dig. And our friend comic book guy Chris Palermo, I've played this with him as well. I don't know if it makes his list of top baseball board games, but for me, it's a cool game and it's a cool way to at least wrap things up a little bit before we talk about what we're doing in a half an hour when college football hits. So
yeah, gonna go enjoy 2 of the 5 greatest fight songs.
Not a good noon kickoff game. Florida at Mississippi State. No matter how much the theme song is going to evoke memories of 20 years ago for me. The big game, I guess, ranking wise, Tennessee at Oklahoma, two of the best fight songs. That's a night game, so you got to wait a little while for that. Texas has Louisiana Monroe. Ole Miss has Georgia Southern.
Who do the Bears have this week? I forget.
Indianapolis.
Oh, that's a winnable game.
It's a game they should win.
Yeah.
So, and if we look back at where I thought I had the Bears winning week 1, I had the Bears losing week 2, I had the Bears winning week 3. So as far as predictions go for the NFL, if the Bears win, then I'm in line with them. Although watching Caleb Williams play, it's hard to think they're going to get 10 wins.
I can't believe watching that game last week. He got hit out of bounds at least twice, maybe a third time. I can't believe the way the league protects quarterbacks, and they didn't try to protect him.
They didn't protect him. I think the stat line I heard on the radio, he dropped back to pass 46 times. He was pressured 38 of them or something like that.
Ugh.
That you can't sustain that. That's but I mean, to be fair, Houston's defensive line, and they opened with Tennessee. Both of their D lines are among the league's better D lines. I don't think Indianapolis fits that bill. So if Indianapolis creates that kind of pressure, then the Bears have a serious O-line problem. I'm not going to say they have a serious O-line problem until
they're not Carolina.
A couple games in, and we see what they do against the average NFL defense or the below average NFL defense.
How about those?
Who does Philly have?
They go to New Orleans, who's dropping 40 on everybody.
I mean, that can't be sustainable, can it?
I mean, I didn't even think they dropped 40 once in their first 2 games. Yeah.
What's that?
I didn't even think they dropped 40 in one of their first 2 games, let alone both.
I
mean, Derek Carr's out there, putting up video game numbers.
And Kamara he's youthful again.
Yeah. He's looked studly. Wait, 4 touchdowns.
You didn't mind seeing what they did last week.
No, I kind of liked it.
That was acceptable.
It was also entertaining watching Minnesota beat San Francisco. But then Karma came and got me on Monday night.
Do you call that play on 3rd down?
The pass?
We didn't talk about this. Maybe we should have, but I wasn't thinking. The whole Tennessee money thing really racked my brain on Tuesday. So we'll talk sports again. Do you call that play on 3rd and 3 at the end of the game?
I wouldn't, but I don't hate the call.
If he catches it, it's a great call.
Absolutely.
It was a safe throw. I'll give him that.
And, here's the other thing. So say they run it on 3rd down and they don't get it and they kick the field goal. Atlanta still has
kick a field goal. I don't think they kick, and that's the thinking is it was 3rd and 3. On 3rd and 3, if you can get 1 or 2 yards, clock runs,
you push it up.
Then you push. And honestly, if you don't get it there, you give the ball to Atlanta with 30 seconds left. And honestly, best case scenario, Atlanta is looking for a field goal to tie it, and you're the better team. You should win in overtime. That was the thinking on why you run it, I think. But I don't hate the throw either. If he catches the ball, you play to win the game. Yeah, I think everybody in the world thought it was a run. So you do the little quick flood pass out to a normally sure-handed running back. I mean, Saquon Barkley is as automatic a catch as you would imagine. He catches that 99 times out of 100. He just caught the one.
Yeah, right, and it was a good throw by Hurts. He didn't turn Saquon around. He got him right in the hands, let him, but
Barkley came out after the game and owned it. He's like, I should have caught that, and it's on me. He said everything you were supposed to say. Just you hate to see a game blown. And the other, I just heard this on the radio yesterday, I think, on the way to work. At the end after the game, normally it's the coach who speaks. Sirianni didn't speak. It was all Jalen Hurts was the only person who talked after the game. And normally, if the guy on the radio said, if Patrick Mahomes did this, or if Josh Allen did this, or Lamar Jackson did this, or Dak Prescott, if any other quarterback did this, it would be a non-story. But because of the potential relationship issues with Sirianni and Hurts and the way they crashed at the end of the last season, they were making a big deal of this. Is it a big deal to you that Hurts talked?
Not really. The bigger deal, I really feel like Sirianni's a lame duck, which is weird to say about a guy who's led the team to the playoffs each year he's been there. But he's a big personality, and it's great when they win. And when they don't, it makes them a target. And
magnifies it. Yeah.
There's a very real scenario where the Eagles could be 1-4 going into play the Giants. I think it's October 13th or October 20th, because they're 1-1. Then they go to New Orleans, where they're certainly an underdog on the road against what looks like the best team in football.
That's a we'll see game for the Saints. I think that's.
Then I think it's at Cleveland after that, which Cleveland's kind of been a mixed bag, but they've got talent.
They do, and it's on the road.
I believe it's at Cleveland.
You missed again. You have you're at the Saints. You're at the Buccaneers after that,
yeah,
and that's
I knew they got Tampa.
Game.
Yeah,
at Tampa can be a tough game because I think
Mayfield.
They're when you looked at the quarterback situation for Cleveland, and then you see what Baker Mayfield is doing in Tampa, it's kind of like it's the most Cleveland thing ever.
Yeah,
but. So at Tampa, I don't think is a gimme. It's a good game, playoff rematch. Yeah, versus the Browns. Then you're at the Giants, at the Bengals. That's a tough one. The Jaguars, the Eagles have a tough schedule. I'll give them that. The Bears, I mean, they catch a break after the Colts. They get the Rams, and the Rams have all kinds of injury issues. So, I mean, I think that was a toss-up game. Then they've got the Panthers. They should win that game. And they have the Jaguars coming in, winnable game. They're at Washington. As far as road games go, I think that's winnable. They're at the Cardinals, and that's one of those, we'll see what the Cardinals really are by then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Bears coming off this loss against Houston, I still think they're in a good position to win the 10 games, but man, they got to get better quarterback play. They can't have what they've had the first 2 weeks.
And you say we'll see what the Cardinals are by then. I think we'll also see what Marvin Harrison is by then, because he was
Kyler Murray has to trust him. I don't think he trusted him week 1. Now he does.
Well, there was the one play where Harrison was running wide open, and Murray didn't even think to look. The 4th overall pick, the hands down best receiver in college for 2 years in a row, and you don't at least look his way.
How he's not your first option, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I hate the nickname Maserati Marv, but I think he's going to be a problem for years.
There's not a lot about Gus Johnson I like, and even when he gets excited about Michigan and Blake the Great, that just I miss Keith Jackson. That makes one of us. That's good.
Yeah, I like the excitement he brings to the game.
If we drafted our favorite announcers, you could draft him fifth, because I'm not taking him.
No, that's actually a pretty good topic. Are we talking all-time announcers?
I don't know. We'll brainstorm that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
because I have 2 in my head, but yeah, I'd have to look some up.
I mean, Vin Scully would have to be in there.
You can't be talking about it because now.
Sorry.
Do the prep work. That's a good list for when you need a list. It's slow news. What are we talking about this week? Come February when I don't want to talk about the NHL and there's only 2 basketball stories to talk about.
We can only draft so many Simpsons characters.
We'll figure something. What do you want to watch this draft? We got people watching us. Send us an email. We'll put the emails down there. Speaking of email, who I haven't heard from? It's a shame. The original Soup and Meatballs at Gmail people.
Come on, Soup and Meatballs. Hit us up.
I told them, we're running a podcast. It's the most popular show at 10 o'clock on Saturdays. And nothing. So
we got big timed by Soup and Meatballs.
We did, or we got ghosted, or left on red. Can you imagine being these? They're running a food truck in Oklahoma somewhere. And they're like, "Where are these people? What's this podcast?
Stop harassing us."
Maybe they're one of our views on our YouTube channel, or they'll be our second follower on Instagram.
We just want to make our hearty soups and our succulent meatballs. We don't want to talk about sports or The Simpsons with you.
What are you thinking? Yeah. So, but
Sorry, soup and meatballs.
I want to talk about that stuff, and that's why we're here. So
Right?
good, good times, dude, and just good to be goofy on the interwebs and get some people involved, and we'll see what they think of our Simpsons rankings. Looking back at my list and your list, I think it's going to be a toss up. It really is.
It really comes down to
I think,
personal preference. I'm surprised
yeah,
Burns didn't even make your list.
he's the boss, man. Like he's the man.
What, what was I laughing about? Ah, yes, that crippled Irishman. Come on.
The blue-haired lawyer made my honorable mention. If that makes his one of his cronies,
Yeah,
because he's
have they ever given him a name? I can't think of it.
He was listed as blue-haired lawyer.
Descriptive, if nothing else.
If nothing, and I think he was one of those guys that they had a plan for him, and it was just like, okay, one or two episodes, and he just kind of fit in with being Mr. Burns's high-priced lawyer.
I think the best bit they gave blue-haired lawyer was when Grandpa Simpson falls in love with Marge's mom, and they're out to dinner, and he starts doing like he makes the baked potatoes, like he puts them on the end of a fork, and he makes them look like they're dancing, like Charlie Chaplin did in one of his old movies. And the lawyer comes up to him and goes, "Mr. Simpson, I represent the estate of Charlie Chaplin, and you're to stop this unlicensed imitation at once." And then like these two goons come over and throw the potatoes on the floor and stomp on them. And then only to get a call back later when like Mr. Like Abe Simpson looks sad and he kind of cocks his hat down and he walks off and he's like, "Mr. Simpson, I represent the estate of Jimmy Durante." And then they take Grandpa's hat off and stomp on that.
How about the other honorable mention? Just so you know, Auto Man. I like the Auto.
Otto always felt like a lot of cheap stoner humor. He would be very low in my rankings.
I like cheap stoner humor, especially because like you paradox that with the fact that he's in charge of driving your kids to school. Like,
oh, you know who?
The person you trust with your kids on the bus. The bus would be flying off the cliffs, and he would be just gleefully ignorant of how poor of a driver he was. He has the headphones on with the Walkman. Come on,
I'm surprised, and I know he kind of became a bit of a problematic character, but Apu, because Hank Azaria doesn't do the voice anymore because a bunch of people were like, "All right, you're just doing like a cheap, like borderline
appropriation voice." And
yeah.
Nobody mentions Chief Wiggum. You mentioned Ralph Wiggum. Chief Wiggum is a pretty stereotypical. We would consider, I think.
Yeah, another one, and he's very dry, but it works for me. Is Principal Skinner.
Skinner. Oh yeah. Oh, when he relived his war days, or making our third favorite food, steamed hams. We call hamburgers.
We talk about like the quality of the voice acting. I think it tells you how talented Harry Shearer is as the voice of Skinner in the episode where he's just looking at all the laundry detergents and he's like, whisk, bowls, all, Tide. It's such a nothing joke that he sells and makes funny.
Yeah. Oh. I'm trying to think of the other characters that might have like been worth say heying. We didn't mention this last week, but with the passing of James Earl Jones.
Oh yeah.
Was he Bleeding Gums Murphy?
Yes.
Because I think when I saw the image online of Darth Vader and Bleeding Gums Murphy together, I thought, well, that must have been the connection there.
They make a reference to it in The Simpsons when the character Bleeding Gums Murphy dies and he appears in like a cloud to Lisa, and then Darth Vader appears in the cloud and says, "Luke, I'm your father." And then a third
Like
appears and
Morse
says, "This is CNN."
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff,
Good
man.
stuff.
Well, I tell you what, it's 11:45.
Almost
We've been going
kickoff.
for $1.45 out there. So if you hung in with us, thank you. We'll see you again next week.
Hail to
Tim, enjoy the
victory.
games today and tomorrow, and go Bloomsburg, go IUP, and go Blue. Shout out there. Thanks for checking us out, and as they say on the radio, we'll see you after later.